Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In the United Kingdom, authorities arrested, then released Peter Mandelson, the former British ambassador to the United States, over allegations he'd passed confidential government information to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The London Metropolitan Police had started its investigation into Mandelson earlier this month and said it had arrested him, quote, on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Mandelson's arrest comes just days after former Prince Andrew was arrested for the same offense. Mandelson served as a government minister between 1997 and 2001, again from 2008 to 2010, fired from his diplomatic post in September last year as more information about his relationship with Epstein was released. There are now growing calls for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to resign, since Starmer tapped Mandelson to be Britain's top U.S. envoy. This is Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch.
This is the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. Watching the man who he appointed to the highest position in our diplomatic service getting arrested by police, I think is an image that's going to stay with all of us for many, many years to come. And when people think about Keir Starmer and his premiership, they will see the arrest of Peter Mandelson as the defining moment.
Bard College has hired an outside law firm to conduct an independent investigation into communications between the college's longtime president, Leon Botstein, and the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. The release of the Epstein files reveals Botstein traveled to Epstein's Island in 2012. In 2013, the Bard president wrote to Epstein, quote, "I greatly cherish this new friendship. I have real admiration for how you go about doing things." Peter Attia, a CBS News contributor and longevity influencer, has resigned from his post as his emails with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein were released to the public. Attia was recruited and hired by CBS's new editor-in-chief, Barry Weiss, in January, just days before the release of the Epstein files. In the emails, Attia provided medical advice and arranged testing for Epstein. In an email sent to Epstein in June 2015, Attia wrote, quote, "You know, the biggest problem with becoming friends with you, the life you lead is so outrageous, and yet I can't tell a soul," he said. Other emails were far more graphic. In 2008, Epstein was released from a Florida state jail after serving a 13-month term for his conviction of soliciting sex from a minor. An NPR investigation finds the Justice Department failed to release some of the Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor. According to NPR, the additional files include 50 pages of FBI interviews and notes from conversations with a woman who accused Trump of sexual abuse when she was a minor. This comes despite Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was Trump's personal attorney, sending a letter to Congress earlier this month claiming no records were withheld or redacted, quote, on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary, unquote. The U.S. military has blown up another boat in the Caribbean, killing at least 3 people. The U.S. Southern Command published a 20-second video clip of the strike Monday, showing a small boat suddenly exploding. Trump officials again provided no evidence that the boat or the people on board were involved with drug trafficking. This is at least the 3rd such attack over the course of a week, bringing the death toll from U.S. boat strikes in the Caribbean and Pacific to an estimated 150 people. Several legal and human rights experts have said the attacks amount to extrajudicial killings. In Mexico, schools in Jalisco and several other states remain closed as heavily armed Mexican security forces have flooded the streets following a series of reprisal attacks by cartel members in response to the killing of Mexico's most wanted drug lord, Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho. More than 70 people have died since Sunday's operation. The country remains in high alert. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum spoke from Mexico City Monday, refuting news the United States had aided the attempted capture.
Todas las operaciones All operations are carried out by federal forces. There is no U.S. participation in the operation. What there is, as we have said here several times, is a great deal of information sharing. The understanding with the United States is based primarily on the exchange of intelligence information.
We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. A former ICE attorney and training instructor who quit his job last week in protest has accused the federal agency of lying to Congress about having drastically slashed its training standards for new officers. During a forum Monday held by congressional Democrats, Ryan Schwank called ICE's training program deficient, defective, and broken, as the agency has eliminated hundreds of hours of vital training courses, including on use of force, how to safely handle firearms, and protocols to detain immigrants. Ahead of the forum, Democrats unveiled internal documents provided to Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal by DHS whistleblowers, detailing that new ICE recruits received nearly 250 fewer hours of training than before, with the agency also shortening training programs to just 42 days. The revelations come as the Department of Homeland Security is rapidly expanding its hiring of new agents, which has raised alarm on the agency's eroding screening and training standards. Ryan Schwank's testimony comes just weeks after ICE Director Todd Lyons testified in front of separate House and Senate committees, claiming the agency had not reduced the, quote, meat of the training, unquote. This week's findings contradict that. In related news, the only passenger in the car and a key witness in the fatal shooting of Ruben Ray Martinez, the 23-year-old U.S. citizen killed by an ICE agent in South Texas last year, reportedly died in a car crash this weekend. Joshua Orta had planned to speak up as the Trump administration lied about the circumstances of the fatal shooting. Palestinians in Gaza are observing the holy month of Ramadan amidst Israel's attacks and near-total blockade on food and humanitarian aid. Families have gathered across Gaza for iftar, a meal at sunset to break the daily fast. This is Reda Abu Taima, speaking from a camp in Khan Yunis for orphan children.
After the suffering that our children faced, this is the first Ramadan that we gather on one table after the ceasefire took place. The children are enjoying these atmospheres, especially at the orphanage camp. All of them gather and they have the same suffering. This is a joyful moment during Ramadan to celebrate with the children and give them support.
The cost of food has skyrocketed in Gaza due to Israel's restrictions and blockade. An analysis by Al Jazeera found food prices in Gaza at times have spiked by more than 700%. In more related news, Israeli soldiers fired nearly 1,000 bullets, at least 8 of them at point-blank range, killing 15 Palestinian aid workers last year in a massacre in South Gaza. That's according to a joint investigation by the independent research groups Earshot and Forensic Architecture, published Monday. Israel then tried to cover up the attack on the humanitarian aid convoy that included several workers with the Palestine Red Crescent Society and at least one member of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees. President Trump blasted media reports about General Dan Kane, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, warning him about the risks of attacking Iran. On Truth Social, President Trump wrote, quote, General Kane, like all of us, would like not to see war. But if a decision is made on going against Iran at a military level, it's his opinion that it will be something easily won, unquote. It comes as the Washington Post reports General Kane warned the lack of critical munitions and support from regional allies would endanger U.S. troops, as the U.S. munitions stockpile has been significantly depleted by support for Israel and Ukraine. Axios is also reporting General Kane was, quote, all in on the Venezuela operation, but is now more cautious about Iran. Meanwhile, The Guardian's reporting President Trump is basing his decision to strike Iran on the advice provided by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, on whether Iran is serious about giving up its nuclear weapons program. The U.S. and Iran are scheduled to hold a third round of indirect talks in Geneva Thursday. Meanwhile, Iranian students are continuing their protests for a third consecutive day as anti-government demonstrations have spread to Tehran's Al-Zahra University. Students reportedly chanted "Death to the dictator," referring to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It comes over a month after Iranian authorities violently suppressed anti-government mass street demonstrations, reportedly killing thousands. 4 years ago today, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It's since become the biggest land war in Europe since World War II. Today, Russia controls just about a fifth of Ukraine's territory. The Center for Strategic and International Studies says Russia suffered 1.2 million casualties, including up to 325,000 troop deaths between February 2022 and last December, while Ukraine suffered between 500,000 to 600,000 military casualties, including up to 140,000 deaths. This is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And today, we must be just as determined and strong as we were when the invasion began. The threat hasn't become smaller. Yes, we are holding Russia back, but we have not yet guaranteed security. And only together can we do this together in Europe. Yes, together with America.
Federal Judge Aileen Cannon has permanently barred the Justice Department from releasing special counsel Jack Smith's report into the classified documents case against President Trump. Judge Cannon was appointed by President Trump. In 2023, special counsel Jack Smith charged Trump with 40 counts of illegally retaining classified information and obstructing government efforts to retrieve the materials. Cannon later dismissed those charges in 2024. Back in December, Smith testified before Congress in a closed-door deposition that his team has uncovered, quote, powerful evidence that showed Trump willfully retained highly classified documents after he left office in January 2021, storing them at a social club, including in a bathroom and a ballroom where events and gatherings took place, unquote. President Trump is set to deliver his 2026 State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress tonight. Some Democrats are planning to skip the address and hold a rally called the People's State of the Union on the National Mall instead. Senators Ed Markey, Jeff Merkley, Chris Murphy, Tina Smith, and Chris Van Hollen, and Congress members Yasmin Ansari, Becca Balint, Greg Casar, Veronica Escobar, Pramila Jayapal, and Delia Ramirez, and Bonnie Watson-Coleman are expected to join the rally. In a statement, Senator Murphy said, quote, "These aren't normal times, and showing up for this speech puts a veneer of legitimacy on the corruption and lawlessness that's defined President Trump's second term," unquote. It comes as the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, announced he's inviting the family of the Reverend Jesse Jackson to the State of the Union address tonight. House Speaker Mike Johnson denied a request for Reverend Jackson to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol. The national president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, said, quote, "Mike Johnson will defend a president who wants to unlawfully nationalize elections, but won't authorize a civil rights legend to lie in honor." That tells you everything you need to know about Mike Johnson and his gross disregard for our Constitution and our democracy. And fallout from the BAFTA Awards ceremony in London is growing. That's Britain's equivalent of the Oscars. A BAFTA judge, filmmaker Jonte Richardson, has quit, citing the organization's handling of a racist incident during Sunday's awards ceremony. when Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo presented the award for Best Visual Effects. A Tourette syndrome campaigner shouted the N-word twice. The BBC failed to edit out the word from the broadcast, which aired 2 hours after the live show, while cutting the phrase Free Palestine from an acceptance speech by Akinola Davies Jr., a British-Nigerian filmmaker. Jonte Richardson wrote on LinkedIn, quote, "After considerable soul-searching, I feel compelled to withdraw from the BAFTA Emerging Talent Judging Panel. The organization's handling of the unfortunate Tourette's N-word incident last night at the awards was utterly unforgivable. I cannot and will not contribute my time, energy, and expertise to an organization that's repeatedly failed to safeguard the dignity of its Black guests, members, and the Black creative community," Jonte Richardson wrote. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.